Merkel Media.
What does the goddamn line say, Tony?
Please do not use gendered language.
Then what? I'll be arrested, put in airport jail?
Well, you're going completely sideways, man.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
How dare you?
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
I'm Chris Hansen with Dave on NBC.
Jack Marius Tack Theratrix.
Hi, I'm Spartacus.
Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. Steven Seagal.
Sex offender guy.
I'm Keith Morris.
This is Mumbai Gudafi.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
Sorting through the lies.
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
We cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And uncovering the centuries-long plan for world domination.
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Let's talk about Chinese people.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison? Swangles and were locked down?
I have sent 6 of my lithium missiles to blow up the CS hardware department.
Nothing could be more fun than jumping off a cliff with 2 German bisexuals.
Oh, you English are so superior, aren't you?
Thank you, comrade.
And now, macroaggressions.
That's what assholes call it.
With your host,
Buddy, I don't know who you are, but you're about to get chlamydia.
Charlie Robinson.
Hey, Whitey, where's your hat?
You want to drop the blame on Charlie and say it's all Charlie's fault.
He was a retard.
I get some goddamn diuretic.
Welcome to Macroaggressions. I'm your host, Charlie Robinson. If you are watching this on Iconic, Rockfin, Odyssey, or YouTube, or you're listening wherever podcasts are served, thank you so much. We couldn't do it without you. We couldn't do it without the amazing support of our sponsors. My Patriot Supply has been nice enough to create a web landing page for us called preparewithmacroaggressions.com. My God, if you are living through the end of 2021 and you are not thinking about getting yourself prepared, then you need to have your head examined. I'm not saying you have to go buy preparation materials through my sponsors, but for God's sake, do something about it. Start thinking about it. Start doing it on your own. This is a situation where you are better off a month or 2 early than being a day late. You don't want to be in a situation where you have to deal with you don't want to have to deal with the general public in order to get food. Think about these things, plan accordingly. You're listening to weird programs like this. You're going to get information that nobody else has. Take advantage of it. Go to preparewithmacroaggressions.com. You can get a 4-week supply. You can get a 3-month supply of food. They've got great discounts on there for you. I've got my own. I bought some, sent it to my mom. It's not the most glorious Christmas present she's ever going to get, but I'll tell you what, if the shit hits the fan, she's going to be really grateful that she's got that. So start thinking about that. If you want to buy something for your friends, get it for your family. And by the way, no need to freak them out. Just tell them it's for an earthquake, not a global collapse, but we know what it's coming. So take a look at preparewithmacroaggressions.com. See if it's right for you. If it is, pull the trigger. If not, that's cool. Also, True Hemp Science, they are our newest sponsor. They've been amazing. They came in with some great CBD-related products. And, everybody's making CBD. It's hard to tell the efficacy of it. It's hard to tell what's working, what doesn't work. But I have a bad shoulder injury. And when Chris approached me from True Hemp Science, he sent me some products. And I said to him, listen, if this thing can fix my shoulder, then I'm in. 2 weeks, shoulder fixed. I don't know how it works. I don't know why it works. I just know that it works. So I'll tell you what, if you're interested, go and check it out. truehempscience.com/macroaggressions. Take a look, see if there's anything that's right for you. If you spend $65 or more, they will send you a free bottle of number 81 distillate, which is a $26 value. Take it. take a look at the products on your way out. Use the promo code MACRO to save yourself some money. He sent me a great lineup of products. I've been taking it ever since he sent it, and the results for me have been fantastic. So they have free shipping on everything over $150. So it's worth checking out. truehempscience.com/macroaggressions. All righty. Now that the business is out of the way, let's get down to it. I've been no secret that I'm a fan of Frank from Quite Frankly. Love the show. Been watching it for a while. He had me on as a guest. I've had him on as a guest. Love the guy. One of Frank's favorite guests is Jim Lee from Climate Viewer. So I have blatantly and obviously poached Jim Lee from Frank, and I don't even apologize for it. So climateviewer.com. It is the one and only Jim Lee. What's going on, Jim? How are you?
Pretty good. It's a open bromance that Frank and I have. So I think that we're okay with mutually cheating on each other.
Okay. I don't want to offend him. I don't want to steal his guys. But every time you're on, you lay it out in a way that makes so much sense that I feel like people are getting bogged down with the climate stuff. They're getting heavy doses of science and science that they're unprepared to or unqualified to unpack. And it seems a bit heavy, but then you come along and you have this way of explaining the science in a way that doesn't sound so sciencey, and people go, "Oh, I get it. This makes sense." And what we've seen lately, and I've done a couple episodes recently talking about how the powers that shouldn't be are making this pivot to climate change. And we know who these people are. We know that they're psychopathic maniacs that don't want what's best for us. We know that they're pathological liars that are always building these narratives and agendas to get what they want. And it's never what we want. And it's always some sort of trap. So here comes climate change, right? And climate change is going to kill everybody. And we're going to have, it's the skinny polar bear on the shrinking ice.
I thought it was global warming, though.
Yeah.
Wait, let's not call it that anymore, because the climate will always change.
Right.
Let's call it climate change, because then we'll get away from the fact that if it doesn't warm, it's still changing.
Right.
But continue.
It's genius. And so I go back. So my whole beef with all of it started with the Club of Rome's book, The Limits to Growth, where they talk about how they're going to use the idea of global warming, pollution, and they didn't call it climate change at the time, but that's what they're talking about as the pretext to fundamentally transform society through a carbon tax and create the mechanisms for a one world government. They literally say they're going to use it as the pretext for that, and that it doesn't matter if it is real or one imagined for these purpose. So they're already right out of the blocks telling us we're going to be doing some lying. So I don't know exactly what to make of the details of all of the climate change components. So I wanted to bring you in and talk about some of the differences. I mean, I think that what most people are angry about is pollution, which is real. And
that's something we can all agree on.
Yeah. And that is something that should rightly make people angry. But it feels like these maniacs have hijacked pollution, the very realness of the pollution, and use that for carbon taxes and things like that. How much of this climate change narrative that they're putting out there is anchored in reality, and how much of it is just some sort of disguise so that they can collect a brand new carbon credit?
Well, I think if you're not familiar with Patrick Wood, he's the author of Technocracy Rising, and he runs technocracy.news. I had the pleasure of meeting him at G. Edward Griffin's Freedom Force International 3rd Congress out in Arizona. And he gave me his book. And I'd been studying these topics from climate change to geoengineering, their solution for climate change to block out the sun with chemicals dumped in the stratosphere, mimicking volcanoes, weather control, and all of these things. But then it all kind of synchronistically tied a bow on all of the things from the New World Order to all of the NGOs, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the New World Order. And I was sitting here just dumbfounded that I had not heard of the technocracy movement of the 1930s. And this tied directly into one of the other major topics that I talk about. I talk about the 3 Ps: pollution, privacy, and propaganda. Mm-hmm. Because if you talk about pollution, generally speaking, they don't want you to really focus on things that are tangible. They want to focus on the intangible. So they're going to violate your privacy. They're going to hack your computer. They're going to dig up all the information they can on you. And they're going to use that to make propaganda about you and about the things you say, whether it be in the mainstream media or alt media or wherever, or just with sock puppet fake accounts, create 100,000 Twitter mob and, make a false impression of, everybody agrees, but none of these people are real. And corporations and all of them bend the knee constantly to these fake mobs of sock puppets. But the technocracy movement started in the 1930s, and its goal was a one world government ruled by the scientific method by an unelected board of bureaucrats that basically handed down policy from afar, rooted in a universal monetary unit that was an energy-based unit. Okay. And all of this jives with what you're seeing going on today. So this tied very closely into my following of trying to figure out where the New World Order came from. Mm-hmm. And I went back to the New World Moral Order Gomberg map, which was right after World War II. But then it branched out, going back to the war offices that, put out all the propaganda before that, and the Council on Foreign Relations that started the whole process, the ball rolling. And when the technocracy movement kind of died off, the Council on Foreign Relations, James Warburg, famously said, we must haul down the American flag and destroy it, spit on it, stamp on it. And it morphed into what was called the New World Federalists. And this is something I've heard nobody talk about.
I've never heard of it.
According to, what I've been able to dig up, as little as I have, it was one of the largest groups in America, with well over 1 million members and several 100,000 local chapters, all through the 60s and 70s. And their goal, their number one stated goal, was universal disarmament with only a one world federated government with weapons.
No, thank you.
Yes, starting to all kind of sync up. So whenever I use the word technocrat, it kind of summarizes the ideology that encompasses all things handed down from, Club of Rome, Trilateral, Bilderberger, all of these rich bastards that think that their power and influence to control the little people can be exerted through external or existential fear.
Mm. And there's a lot of fear out there.
Yeah, and fear is a number one motivator, whether it comes to selling consumer goods. Let's be frank, you wouldn't be buying survival food if you didn't have a healthy fear and a realistic fear of the global collapse of the monetary system. Absolutely. At any given moment. Or we could have a an electromagnetic pulse from the sun, or a artificial one from a high altitude electromagnetic pulse from a nuclear bomb. North Korea could shoot a nuke 50 miles in the sky over America and knock out the entire power grid. And the Heritage Foundation said 2/3 of Americans would die within 6 months from starvation. So this is a serious, there's a healthy dose of fear to go around, because the weapons just keep getting bigger and scarier. Yeah. Let's not even get into Rod of God yet. But regardless, these technocrats, they keep moving the goalposts. So at first it was, at least in my lifetime, I was born in 1976. Obviously September 11th, 2001 was a big deal. And suddenly everybody was scared that at any moment a terrorist was going to show up and blow up their personal house. Right. Which is completely unrealistic.
Yes.
But the fear was there and it was healthy. And then we gave up so many of our rights for temporary salvation. Ben Franklin would bitch slap us all.
Oh yeah. He'd be right to do it.
Yeah, and we'd all deserve it. But that fear started to die down. And just like anything, there's too much football and freaking TikTok for people to care long enough. So that was quickly replaced with, ISIS, and now ISIS isn't really working. That thing kind of got stamped out. Well, now we're going to have, axe murderers on the streets everywhere. People driving cars into groups of people. No, this isn't really working out too well either. What's the next thing we can do? Oh yeah, let's release a global, bioweapon. Because the only way we're ever going to defeat Trump in 2020 is if we crash the economy. Magic bullet, crash of economy incoming. But the thing that I see that's common between COVID-19 and all the mutations since and climate change is that they both rely on technocrats and their computer models. And this goes to what's called perception management, or mind control in the most generic form.
Right. Yeah.
That technocrats use their argument from authority and their computer models, which are just fascinating toys that, old white dudes who work in Congress who are easily swayed by a fat wallet and a good argument and a healthy fear of, repercussions from their voters. They look at this stuff and they go, well, let me weigh the pros and cons. I got all these science jerk offs telling me that, if I don't do something, 2 million people are going to die. And if I do something, I'm going to crash the economy, which is worse, stupid. That's the kind of scenario we're put in each time. So now, they came out, they made their predictions. Trump reacted by closing down the economy, probably the dumbest decision in his career, if not, many politicians' careers. And then now we're talking about climate lockdowns. You got Al Gore out there talking about this climate trace program where they're putting satellite, going to use 11,000 sensors around the planet to track down the climate change problem, people and hold them to account.
You mean him?
Yeah.
As he flies around in his private jets and yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I'd like to first see your climate trace sensor network assess the climate impact of COP26.
Yes.
And all of you rich bastards flying to meet when you could have had a Zoom call and achieved the same
you got it.
Effect.
400 private jets flying in there. And
you can't have $1,000 meal and, rub each other's buttocks, and photo shoot, to be a Zoom. So that's just not posh enough for the people who are going to tell us how to live our lives. At the end of the day, I think that they use these climate models. They use these COVID models. They use these these threats of existential, these existential fear threats to get people to give up their rights. And they do it through what's called communitarian law. And communitarian law is something that's rarely ever discussed, but it's law for the greater good. It's at the expense of people like myself who consider themselves to be a rugged individualist. I believe in freedom and liberty at the localist level possible, being me. And I am a government of one, except when my wife is involved.
I understand.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I want my government as local and as small as possible. And the further it gets away from my house, the less likely it is to be relevant to me and more likely to be stripping me of my freedom and pissing me off. And I think that generally is, that resonates with most people. You don't want people who don't know you and don't know how you live telling you how to live your life.
Right.
So I think that the whole idea that they use computer models, which do not account for 90% of what's actually going on in the atmosphere, especially aerosol cloud interactions, the greatest unknown in climate science. Yet you have, 1+ billion people on the internet screaming bloody murder about chemtrails on a daily basis. I went to Washington, D.C. and spoke at an EPA hearing on C-SPAN in 2015. And I said, while I appreciate that Obama is trying to appease his COP21 Paris Accord, cronies by regulating greenhouse gases coming out of jet aircraft, we're not concerned as public, people with greenhouse gases. We're concerned about heavy metal particulates, which are poisonous, and clouds that are being created by planes, which have a greater effect on the climate than the sum of all the greenhouse gases you're talking about.
Oh, what was their reaction to you saying that?